Hello, everyone. Madilynn Dale here, and I've got a fantastic author for you guys to check out and meet today. I'm going to bring him up and let him introduce himself, and then we're going to chat about his work.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lyman Rate. I am the author of The Wizard's War, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be doing this today. A little bit about me: I'm in Kansas, born and raised, was in the military for a while, lived in Alaska, did a bunch of different things, moved back to Kansas to be closer to family, and I'm married. I have two wonderful little dogs who they make mornings interesting because it doesn't matter if I want to sleep in or not. They want to get up because they need to go out. So sleeping in is a non-existence to me. Um, I just enjoy life, make everything the best I can, and I enjoy writing. And in my free time, I animate music to lights, and I go out and do nature photography. So I definitely keep busy, and but I try to keep mostly busy with just doing my writing stuff.
Nice. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the show
I
today.
am very glad to be here.
I'm with you on the sleeping in. It's non existent in my house as well, with pets and a 4-year-old who
Yeah,
I'm
you've got your
hoping
hands
doesn't
full.
crash the show today. Knock on wood. So let me go ahead and tell us about your book or books.
So I've actually got three different books. Two of them are part of a military fiction series that I started years ago, back in 2014. And then the newest one is Wizard's War, and it is a fantasy epic thriller that I actually started about 4 or 5 years ago. And that one is kind of ironic because I had told myself when I was working on my military fiction that I wasn't going to get into fantasy. Somebody asked me, "Hey, do you ever see yourself writing something else? Do you see another genre?" My answer was no. I see myself doing the military thing because that's what my experience was. And I went to the dentist, and I needed to have some teeth worked on. And I hate the dentist. I bet there's a lot of people who can relate to that. Um, yeah, so they said, well, we need to do this and that, and we need to drill on one of your teeth. And I'm like, no. And they said, well, we have that nitrous oxide, that laughing gas sort of stuff. And I'm like, sure, why not? And basically from that, I came up with this harebrained, hey, I have an idea. And in a matter of 8 days, I had my premise, my story, my world building, all the basic concepts for this fantasy story written down. And then I spent a year, almost 2 years, actually doing the world building for it. And now I love writing fantasy. And that's what, ironically, the military fiction, I still have to get the third book finished, but my joy and my love now is writing the fantasy with the dragons and stuff. So it's kind of interesting how that all worked out.
That is awesome. And the fact that it stemmed from laughing gas makes it even better.
Yeah, that's the best bets. It's like, so how'd you come up with the story? I said, get some laughing gas, man. You might be surprised at
Yeah.
what you come up with.
I mean, my experience with it, it just super relaxed me and made me want to go to sleep. Because, like I mentioned before we started recording, I recently had my wisdom teeth like taken out, and they used that
Yep.
at the start. And all I did was just like, yeah, let's just nap.
Well, and the thing is I've got to have another tooth worked on here in about 2 weeks. So who knows what else stories will come out of that one? I mean, for all I know, I might end up doing a sci-fi thing. So that might be interesting.
Hey, never limit yourself. That's what I always like to say, because I have work and ideas that just like span everything. I feel like, and I'm just like, oh yeah, we're just I guess gonna play
Right.
around with this genre too. So
Don't limit yourself,
yeah,
because if you limit yourself to one thing, you might find that you've missed an opportunity in another genre. And you might find, like I am, that another genre is actually a better genre for you. I feel like I'm more creative with this, whereas with the military, it's not really super rigid, but it is pretty rigid
yeah,
on, you've got to make it as believable as possible. And then that, unless you keep up on everything that's going on, that can be a challenge.
yeah. So you said you planned this all out in about a week after the laughing gas thing, correct?
Hmm.
tell me what that process was like for you. Did you write an outline or just how did it go?
Well, so when I first got the idea, I immediately went home, and I'm still up on drugs and my mouth hurts and everything else. But I'm literally sitting at my computer with gauze stuck in my mouth from having a tooth pulled, and I'm on my computer and I've come up with, okay, here's my premise. Now what? And I'm like, okay, now I have to figure out, okay, what time period? What do I want to do? What do I want this to work out to be? And I noticed that everybody loves to write fantasy in the medieval period. A lot of people like to write in the middle to post medieval period. I wanted to go opposite of that. I wanted to go early medieval period because it's not really used, but it ties in that I can then expand my story out into the medieval period, into the post medieval period, into beyond that. And I can expand not just the books and the series, but I could even write other series that tie off of the original series that all expand 100 to 300 years, and I'm all within the same realm.
Nice, like a little
So,
spin-off series.
right. And that's actually something that I'm actually working on. I finished the first series, Wizards, the Beacon series, which is Wizards War is the first book of. I've written a second series, which all 5 books are written, but they're in various forms of editing, and a lot of them are really just first drafts. But then I've started my mega series, which is right now I have an outline for 18 books. And it is actually going to split the first series and the next series I wrote and sandwich right in the middle, but all 3 tie into the same world.
Yeah, you're gonna have your work cut out for you.
It is definitely going to be a challenge. But the thing that I'm working on is I'm going to put nitpicks and artifacts and different things from the first series into this new series that I'm writing that they're going to find that are going to tie in the first series to this one, and then they're going to tie into the third series, which really is going to revolve everything around. So I'm kind of, everybody's like, oh, you're working on multiple series. Is yes, but they're all in the same time frame in the same world. So that's a whole lot less world building I have to deal with. All I have to do is come up with new characters, new names, new creatures. Even in the new series, I have a dragon killer, which I was not expecting. I was like, what's bigger than a dragon? And what will kill a dragon? I'm like, wait a second. Okay, we have a dragon killer. I'm just going to keep on. It's just called the creature. So, and I'm going to bring that creature back, or the creatures back, like at book 7 or 8. So that's going to be fun. But from there, it literally came down to, okay, I need to have my primary, my antagonist, my protagonist. What do I need to do? The original idea was insanely rough. I wrote down the concepts for actually 9 books. I was going to do a 9 mega series. And when I was actually writing it, I was able to merge information and ideas I had from some of the later books into earlier books, which made it a 5-book series. But I honestly don't remember a whole lot of it because I was on medications for like 6 days of the 8 to 9 days I was actually coming up with it. And I remember going back and looking in my folder history, and I have a writing folder, and I'm like, what is this? And I literally opened it up and I'm reading through it and going, I don't remember any of this. It's a great idea, but I don't remember actually working on this. I'm always like, yeah, man, you worked on that for like, when you got off work, you were working with it for 4 or 5 hours every day, like using the fantasy name generator. You would, and I'm like, I don't recall any of that.
Wow.
So, medications do wonders because, yeah, I wrote the whole premise of this 5-book series that I vaguely remembered writing about, and I expanded it from there. Um, I could definitely tell it was going to be something that I was really, really interested in because I could tell from how I had written out my plans that I was excited about it.
Hmm.
So I wanted to do it justice, and I wanted to take my time in the world building from the different groups to the different lands to the different people in the lands to the agricultural, the industrial, the commercial, the supply and demand, all of that. I really wanted to fit everything together so that it made sense, because there are times where you can read a book and you're just like, where did that come from? Or, how does that actually fit into the storyline or the plot line? Or you're reading along and something totally the opposite of what was written is written in now, and now you're contradicting yourself as to, okay, wait, my money was this but now it's this, but how did it get from that to this? And it kind of throws off your enjoyment of the book. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to painstakingly work through that, and I spent a little over a year just on my world building, and that included all the creatures. And okay, I know I'm going to have my cows and my chickens, and I'm going to have those animals. But when I came to the Krausai and um the the different creatures in the woods, and the one thing that I thought was really fun is the barrier to the Volran forest. um I hadn't seen the barrier done before, so that really kind of made it fun for me. But yeah, I don't really recall much of those 8 days.
I mean, that's not a
It was
bad
just
thing.
there.
You had all
It's
the
there.
stuff in a folder, so it was there, and
Yeah, I didn't lose it, which is good.
that is good. That's like your brain's like, oh, here, we're going to make sure this is saved because we want this. It's going to turn into something great. And
It's like being in the shower. You swear you're going to write it down
oh
when you
my
get out of the shower.
gosh,
You never
yes.
write it down, so you lose
Yes.
it.
The
Somehow
worst
I had enough
is,
cognizance to write it down on the computer and actually save it for once.
yes. I handwrite a lot of stuff like that in notebooks, and I have notebooks everywhere, but it never fails. It always hits me when I'm in the middle of doing dishes. I get these ideas. I'm like, oh,
Yes, yes. Your hand is in a glass, and you just came up with the plot
yes.
fix for another story, and you're like,
Or even
my
a
hands are
plot
wet.
twist, like which happened to me this morning, and it was like, oh, do I really want that to happen in this story? I don't know. That's gonna make it bad. Like, not bad, but like it's gonna make it have a tragic ending. And I was like, I don't know if I
I'm
want
not.
to do
I'm not.
that.
I'm not afraid of a tragic ending. I'll just say that.
I'm getting
This.
there with those tragic endings because this one's brutal, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's really gonna tear readers up. But I
Um,
can't say what it is for those
I'm not going to
watching.
say what mine is, but I will say this: that if you get to that last book, either readers are going to love me or hate me,
Yep.
because I do bring in the true feelings of what war is. And
Mm.
yeah, I've had a couple people read the last one or two scenes of. I already have the last two scenes. I have the whole series written, but I've let a couple people read that last two or three scenes, and they're just like, it's pretty much a mixed bag. I hate that you did that. I
Yeah.
hate it. And I'm like, and so people are like, dude, that was bold. That was awesome. And I'm like, but it follows everything exactly how my characters would be. So
Yeah, and I
yeah.
like it. I mean, it sucks when people die in stories, especially when you grow to love them. But if it's accurate, like especially like with war scenes and stuff, it always bothers me in stories when it's like, oh, all of these certain people go into battle, but none of them get hurt or die or anything, but everybody else dies around it. But I'm like, that
The
is
big
not
battles
realistic.
happen, and then all of your main characters have a
Hmm.
big celebration at the end. That's not how war works. I mean,
No, it's not.
but I at the same time, I really, well, yeah. It's I have my editor is still on working on book 2. I have warned her about book 5. Um I'll be curious to see what she thinks, because she's really, really enjoying a couple of the primary characters. But I'm not afraid to kill people, and I'm not afraid to kill animals. I mean, as long as it moves the plot and moves the story forward, and there's a reason for it, not just,
Hmm.
oh, I'm just going to randomly kill this person just because. It. Sorry, they're getting axed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not immune to. Oh, I love my darlings, and I can't. That it, they got to go. They got to go.
Yeah, because you want to entertain the reader. You don't sometimes the stories are not like happy, like fluffy bunny stories. They're dark
Well, if you
and
want that, you are not going to get it in my stories. Sorry. I mean, book one's got a number of losses already in it that I mean, one of the saddest scenes in the entire series is in the very first book. So um,
tearjerker.
it made me cry. I actually had to stop writing for a couple days when I wrote it because of
Yeah.
the emotional connection I had between the character and the animal. So
And that's how you know it's a good scene. Like I've caught myself doing that, and I in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, readers are gonna hate me because they're this person's gonna be gone, but like it needs to happen. So,
this one is a person with their horse,
oh,
and the horse unfortunately you know gets injured to the point where there's just no way to save it, and it's a very personal connection between Harsan and his horse, and it got me. I mean,
yeah,
when I was actually writing it, I had to stop a few times and like, do I really want to put this in here? Because if it's getting me as the author, it's definitely going to get somebody as a reader.
yeah,
But it moves the story and it moves some of the character changes. Well, and the thing is I want my characters to literally be developing as people and be relatable to people who are reading it
yeah,
because they can see through the 5 books the different characters growing as people, but also as characters and their interaction with each other. Not just, oh, here's a character. Oh my gosh, they're already grown. They're already very
mhm,
mature. They do this, they that. No, they learn through trials and mistakes and growth and death and happiness and sadness, just like we do.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the things that I've had a number of people that have read it reach out. They're like, I really like how you have made it so that they are not prone to not making mistakes. They're going to make a mistake,
mhm.
and it's either how they're going to acknowledge it or go from there. So
Yeah, and that shows great character development overall. I love stories that do that. I feel like those are actually the better stories because if you have a story where there's like no character development, I feel like the story gets stuck, like it doesn't move. So, or that the
yep, I
character's
agree.
like a fake, kind of 1D, not realistic
They're not
person.
they're not human. They're
Yeah,
just a character. You haven't given them physical emotion or capability for emotion. To me, I lose interest in a character when that kind of thing happens.
yeah,
I want to be able to grow and learn and from who I'm getting involved with,
mhm,
and I want them to make mistakes. I want the reader to see them grow as a person, um, especially in book 2 and 3, when they have to go and find the new wizard. And, all they know for the new wizard is that it's a child. Well, you get to watch this child grow up. You get to watch the child go through the teenage. I know everything. I do all
mhm,
this. Bob, you get to read through that. You get to live that experience, and you get to live through some of the mistakes the child makes. And I think that really helps with the overall development because at the end of the whole series, this child is an adult and has to make a cognitive decision, which is going to be, what do I do with the world and the power that I have? Now that I know the true meaning behind the beacon, which everybody could say, dude, if they knew what the whole purpose of the beacon was literally at the start of book 2, the whole series would have been over. But there's a reason for that. She had to go through her development to get to that stage of understanding what the beacon was.
huh. That's interesting. So, with your books and your writing and everything, I like to ask authors what they see or what defines success for themselves. Like, so what do you feel like? Do you feel like you've reached a successful point, or are you striving for a different kind of success? Like, where do you feel like you're at with that?
Success is something that everybody, there's different definitions for success for different authors. Some want fame, some want, the monetization of, being able to support themselves with their books. I mean, would I like to have the fame and the support and the popularity? Of course, but that's not to me the definitive line for what success is. I mean, for me, there's levels of success. First success is writing the book. Second success, story for me would be to get it published. Doing an interview, that's a success. If I could get one person who reads my book and enjoys my book and reaches out, says, "Hey, love the book. I'm looking forward to the next one and the rest of the series." That's a level of success for me. I don't look at, everybody's like, "Oh, but you got to look at the long term, the big game," and I'm like, the big game is just to add up all the little successes. And if you try to set yourself an expectation at the wrong, at the ultimate high end, like, I want to make $5,000 a month on my books. Hey, you know what? That's great. And if I make that, awesome. If I don't want that to be a measure of, okay, I failed. And I think for me, it's just stepping stones. They're stepping successes. Each one adds to that ladder or that staircase to the next to the next step. And to me, those are all successes. So I can't really say there's just one because I've had so many. I mean, I've had people read my book, I've had people leave reviews, I've got it published. Lots of success there. And it's just a matter of the mindset, and everybody's different.
I like that mindset though. Like, that's really good. That it's like stepping stones. It's more. I feel like it's a broader view of success versus like an isolated like tunnel vision kind of view. So I really like that description how you put that up there. So
Some people are like, but that tunnel focus for some, that is what they absolutely have to get in order to get to that next level.
yeah,
For me, I don't need tunnel vision to know, okay, I have a step by step process and each step will allow me to get to that end goal.
mm-hmm.
Whereas some people need that focal point of that one end goal and they're going to do everything in their power to drive to it. I respect that.
Yeah. So back to your books, the characters. Where did you draw inspiration for them?
A lot of the characters are bits and pieces of me. Um, Harsan is a bit of me from being, always wanting to learn something. There's been times where I'm not exactly the most confident person in the world. I do question things quite frequently. Um, but there are other parts that I just take from people that I know, people that I've interacted with. Um, and I kind of merge a little bits of me with, these other people. But I also think about people who, what do readers really like? You've got your strong type, you've got your soft type, you have your boisterous type, you have your laughing people, you have Ogaris. Ogaris is this portly older gentleman who is on the council. He is basically Bimaron's right hand man, who is the high elder of the council. All he thinks about is food. And everybody's like, "Why haven't you got married?" He said, "Because then I couldn't eat food when I wanted." I mean, and I like food. If anybody knows me when I'm at work, they're like, "What are you doing tonight?" I'm just like, "Well, I'm eating. I'm gonna have tacos." Tonight is Taco Tuesday. Wednesday is Wacky Wednesday. Whatever goes. Thursdays are Tuscan Thursdays. I'm gonna have a pasta dish that day. Fridays are fry day. That means I'm gonna do something that's fried on Friday. I have a different theme for each day. I like food. I like eating different kinds of food. That's next food. I don't care. It's food. That's Ogaris. He's literally like, "Hey, let's go to the chow hall. We just ate. So what?"
Yeah.
Hey, where's Ogaris? Where do you think he's at? Yeah, I'll go find him at the chow hall, back table. That's Ogaris, but he's this portly, charming, he cares about people, but he's just down to earth, and he knows what he likes, and that's it. And he doesn't care. And he also makes fun of himself. He's like, yeah, if I tried to walk here, first off, I wouldn't get here. Second off, I'd be dead. And third off, I would, I feel bad for my horse. I mean, he makes fun of himself because he knows, but he doesn't care. He's free, and but he has that serious side to him, and he knows, and he's also the voice of reason between Bemaran Harsan and, the council. So, he's a big chunk of me because I'm the exact same way. I usually end up being the voice of reason between a couple different people
Mhm.
because I see it objectively with everybody, and I like food. So he's probably the most liked character to me. A video.
Nice. That is, he sounds like a funny character. So another thing I like to ask authors is, what do you do for self-care? Do you have a routine that you follow that kind of helps you keep your mindset moving forward and in a good zone?
Um, Honestly, I don't have much of a self care. I mean, it's. I mean, I have a horrible sleep. I'm horrible with
Oh,
sleep. I mean, part of that's from doing. I mean, part of that's from the military. I mean, getting to bed at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, that kind of stuff, and getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's been ingrained in me forever.
yeah.
Um, my work schedule now, I'm up by 4:30 every morning
Mm,
to get ready for work. So going to bed by 10, my goal is to go to bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock. But thanks to phones and games and social media, I'm next thing I know is it's like midnight, and I'm going, I got to be up in 4.5 hours. I might want to get some sleep. And, then I get some sleep. Um, I try to eat healthy. But convenience foods are comfort. I mean,
mhm.
I like beef jerky. I try to stay away from candy if I can, and that sometimes can be a challenge because sometimes you need that pick me up. Coffee.
Yeah.
If I could figure out how to do an IV drip, not only
Oh
would I be
gosh.
very happy for myself, but I think I'd be a very wealthy man because that would be a very popular invention.
Yes,
Uh,
it
you can figure out
would.
how to do a full coffee drip and not kill yourself by injecting into
Mhm.
your vein. Call me. I'm interested. I'll definitely back that thing in a heartbeat. But
Yeah.
um, it's not uncommon for me to drink 4 or 5 cups a day. I mean, coffee is my crutch, but
Yeah, I'm right there with you on the coffee thing.
I gotta have it. And there's been days where I don't have it, and I'll have an energy drink, and I'm like, all right, I'll survive. And then like 4 hours later, I'm like, nah, I gotta go get the coffee maker going. I'm hurting here.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, it's I need a better self care routine. My wife has been after me that for years. Sorry,
Mhm.
honey. Um, uh, I'll keep working on it. Let me put it that way. Uh,
Yes, there you go.
but eventually, once things get settled down, I definitely want to get into a better routine. Um, Not with just self care, but with everything, because I do
Mhm.
feel at times I'm just run ragged with everything that I'm doing, and it's like I know something has to stop.
Yeah. I get that because that's as a parent in general. Like I feel like I don't have downtime.
Oh, and I
So
mean, I don't. My son's 18. He's
yeah.
graduated, so I can't even say that I have kids as an excuse. I mean,
Mm.
I just keep myself too busy,
Yeah,
and that's I guess benefit of having a lot of things to do, but at the same time,
it's exhausting.
it's like something has to give. And
Yeah.
I've got my podcast, and I've had that since 2000, since May of 2020, since
Hmm.
in the middle of the pandemic. And I've had to pause it a couple times for health reasons or whatever for either my wife or I,
Hmm.
but I've had to put it back on the back burner once again because I've just got so many things that I'm working on, and yeah, I have to make it. It's a hard choice. What gives, but I definitely don't want to just give it up. I don't want to just stop. That would be horrible.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead and tell our viewers a little bit about your
But
podcast.
well, it's that Writer Guy podcast. So when I came up with the idea, it was right after I had been let go from my job. I worked at a casino at the time, and we shut down in late March when everything shut down, and I was basically sitting around the house bored out of my mind, which really sounds weird now with everything that I'm doing. And I said, you know what? I really want to come up with a podcast. And I thought, that'd be a good idea. So I did a lot of research, and I found that a lot of podcasts are really general about very certain things. They love to talk about certain things. They love to talk about specifics. And I was like, I really want to just do something that's general based. I want to cover as many different topics as I can, because
Yeah.
I feel like that is it's going to be valuable to somebody. So I decided to go with that Writer Guide podcast, and I basically cover anything and everything writing related, from editing to book design to where you can publish your book, from self-publishing to the publishing options, to okay, you've got Kindle, you've got Apple, you've got um, books, Barnes and Noble, you've got all kinds of different places. But I also talk about basically anything and everything that comes down to a writing sense. From my world building, I did an eight or 11 section series on that, just 8 different episodes, broke it down into like the different parts. So first off, you've got the world. Second off, you've got, are there going to be different lands? What about the people? What about pronunciations? What about the alphabet? What about how they talk? What about building your own language? Do you adapt a language that's already out there and make it your own? There's a lot of different things that a lot of people really don't realize goes into creating a world, especially when it comes to sci-fi, fantasy. And everybody's like, oh, well, if I'm writing romance, I don't have to think about it. Well, yeah, you technically do, because depending on your where you want that romantic story to be,
Mm-hmm.
they need to be able to speak, dress, talk, look, and act like that time period.
Yeah.
So it is vital. And everybody's like, oh, well, okay, I guess I have to do world building. And the answer is yes, you do. You
Yeah.
just don't realize it.
Yep.
So I cover a lot of different topics. I do interviews with authors. Um, I was going to do a creator month where I was going to literally talk to people from different parts of just creators, from comic book creators to podcast creators to writers to filmmakers. I've got a couple people that I know that are actually in film and actually are behind the scenes of, like, The Doctors. I don't know if you know that show.
Mm-hmm.
It's on. I have a friend of mine who actually was a part of that show, as one of the producers back there. Get them to come on and talk about other sides of things that we really don't think about. Get somebody that's actually a book creator that actually creates the physical books themselves. I wanted to get different people that are part of the creative industry, but also in the writing industry, to give people an understanding and an insight as to the other aspects
Mm-hmm.
that we don't usually see about as a writer or as an aspiring writer. We don't see those other parts that we may be interested in, or we should probably look into, to help create a full circle of support from start to finish. So hoping to get to that. I want to get to that this year. We'll see what that happens, but I'm really looking forward to that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But podcast is That Writer Guide podcast. It's on all major platforms. You can find it. You can even use your smart devices. You can ask Alexa, Google, all of that. I'm also on Facebook, and you can actually go to my website, lymanrate.com. There's a link for That Writer Guide podcast. You can click on that, and it'll take you to that, and you can find all the information there as well. So it's been around since 2020. I love doing it. I don't get paid for it. I don't care about that. A lot of people are like, hey, I do the podcast because I want to make money. It's not about the money. It's about providing information to editors and to people who want to write, or who want to learn to write
Mm-hmm.
and want to learn more about the craft. So that's
Nice.
pretty much everything about that podcast.
Sweet. So go ahead and tell our viewers where they can find you other than the podcast and your books.
So I am mostly on Facebook and on Twitter. I've been on the fence with TikTok and Instagram and all that. Blah, blah, blah. I've really been hesitant on doing it because everything that I'm doing right now does take up a lot of time, and adding a few more things may not be the wisest thing to do. But I'm still on the fence of those. But Lyman's Worlds of Words is my book group. It is a public group, so you can definitely find it there. As I said, my website, lymanrate.com. Twitter is that WG podcast or author Lyman Rate. Those are the two for that. And then, of course, my books are on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and wherever you can get books.
Sweet. Well, Lyman, thank you so much for being on the show today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.